Back in 2016, I found this, 100-plus-year-old cottage that was, well, in not the best condition. It was completely abandoned. Then I found out the story of this house, and that was quite terrifying. Now, in this video, I am going to be showing you the start to finish of this entire project. I'm going to say exactly what we paid for it, how much it cost to renovate, and after just over a year of working on it, how much we had it valued at. And I do just want to say, I'm not saying any of this to brag or show off. It's truly to be transparent on the true cost of doing something like this and what it actually was like doing, because at the time of doing this renovation project, my brother and me had full-time jobs working in the city. My brother worked in private equity, I worked in asset management, and if you know, you know, those aren't like light jobs. You're knackered and miserable doing them, and then to drive out of London to do this project every evening, every weekend, every bit of annual leave for just over a year was truly the most miserable project I have ever done, but it was essential for getting me where I am today. So the first thing we needed to do was start clearing the land, because nature had taken back over this plot. And before you even say anything about me cutting these trees down, you can't just cut trees down, you need to have all these surveys done, because if there is a mouse hiding under a rock, I've got to get the experts in to remove said mouse. I had to pay a couple £1,000 for all of these surveys to be allowed to do it, and the people who actually know what they're talking about when it comes to the environment go, oh, all of these trees, they're invasive, most of it is laurel, and it's been completely unkept for 100 years. So we give you permission to cut down everything. Now, I actually quite liked some of the trees. So some of the beech trees and an oak tree that was 200 years old. I was allowed to even cut that down, but I didn't want to. So I kept that just to get tree surgeons in to cut down all of the trees. We got quoted £8,000 for, and I thought, I'm not paying that. So this excavator with a flail, I think it's called, it's just a blender, and it shreds anything that goes in its way. That cost 850 quid, so a pretty decent saving there, and it's very dangerous, so you should never be anywhere near it. However, I did go really close to it at one point because my next door's cat started going really close to it, and I got shouted at so much for this, but I couldn't let it get shredded, so I ran within a meter of seriously fast spinning blades to pick up the cat just in case my brother didn't see it, and the cat was fine. I was fine. I returned the cat to my neighbour's house, and I reminded them again that we've got a shredder on site today, so you should probably keep your animals inside. And they said, oh yeah, we'll do that. And literally 2 hours later, their, what's it called, a Springer Spaniel, had climbed through the fence and was sniffing the tracks of the excavator as the thing's blending. It was actually unbelievable how the animals had no fear of this machine, considering how noisy it was. So I picked their dog up, and then I carried that round. And as I was walking around, I was thinking this could have been the worst introduction to my neighbours. But thankfully, it was all fine. Now, the clip that you've just been watching, I've left on the screen for a while because I've got a question for you. How many outbuildings can you see right now? Because if I told you there's one, you'd go, where is it? If I told you there's two, you'd go, there's no way. Was actually 4, totaling just over 120 square meters. There's a garage with an attached workshop. To the right of that is where they used to keep goats. Then in the center of the screen is another pretty decent sized garage. And then on the right hand side is a 20-meter stable block where there are 4 parking bays for horses. I don't think you call them parking bays, that's cars, but you park the horses there anyway. And when we viewed the site, we realised that most people wouldn't bother exploring the land because it had so many brambles and stinging nettles. It was completely overgrown and a bit sketchy in places to climb around. But considering the price of this site, my brother and me came back for a second viewing and we measured every single one of the outbuildings. We remeasured the entire site and we found 2 more outbuildings that they weren't even showing when they drew the plan of the site, and they also got the size of the plot wrong. So a quick piece of advice, remeasure everything, because there is a chance that what they say you're buying, you might not actually be. And that's a rare occasion. This is the only example I've ever seen of it, but when you're talking about quite large sums of money, you don't want to be buying something that you're not actually getting. And on that note, well, how much did this site cost? And well, it's an aggressive number. We paid just over £500,000 for this. So that is the purchase price, solicitor fees, the taxes. it's a lot. And if you think we're insane from the footage you've seen already, well, it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better, unfortunately. So this is the dining room, and it's just lovely. Really homely, and the only way you can see what's on the screen right now is mad editing, so it just boosts all the exposure, because my phone couldn't even register that I was in a room because it was so dark. So if you look at the shadow, I'm holding a drone with my right hand to film this and a torch in my left hand, and that's the only way I managed to get any footage of the inside. Now the room I'm about to go into is known as the butcher room, and as you can see, a lot of tables laid out, and the smell of damp and disgustingness in here was grim. There's no concrete slab floor, no tiles, nothing. It was just pure soil, which is, I can't even believe the next part I'm about to tell you, which is the person was living in this 2 months before we bought it, which I appreciate is hard to believe, but it's 100% true. 2 months before we bought it, there was someone living in it in this condition. And to be really honest with you, I can remember exactly how we felt walking around at this stage, and you just felt sad, because it's hard to believe nobody cared about the guy who was living in it. And maybe he deserved it. We don't know. He could have been a not very nice person. But yeah, it's just sad that someone could live in this condition. And as we head upstairs, I'm not going to go in the bathroom for a particular reason. And I appreciate some of you might be eating your food or something now, so what I'll say is, toilet wasn't connected. He tried to connect it with duct tape, the duct tape failed. So a bad issue happened. And there was supermarket bags next to the toilet. And I remember on the first viewing thinking, why would you store your supermarket bags next to a toilet? Now, whilst we were outside, my brother goes to me, Chris, walk around that side of the house and check if the walls are leaning out. So go right next to the oak tree so you can get a really good line of sight, because if the walls are bowing, then there's structural issues and that's going to cost a lot of money to do, or we're going to have to just knock the house down. So I started walking towards the oak tree, and I found piles and piles of these bags. And then I looked at the ground under the oak tree and put 2 and 2 together. It was disgusting. In fact, that's really all I can say to describe how it felt. The second you stepped into this building, you immediately wanted to just leave it. The humidity in there, because there were so many holes in the roof, was crazy. Water would just flow in. You can see in the ceiling all the lava and plaster has fallen down, and how that happens is there's a leak in the roof. The plaster absorbs so much water that it can't hold itself up against the ceiling anymore, so that collapses. The window in this room had been pushed in and broken by the ivy growing up the brickwork, so there was no way of shutting the windows, so all of the rain would go down the ivy and then straight into the house and then fall through the floor into the butcher room. And then this is currently the master bedroom. And watching this back and knowing what it's going to look like by the end of this video, I mean, you've literally just got to have some vision. And then you got to have a load of credit cards lined up, because this wasn't a cheap renovation project. This is the original floor plan, and it's actually a decent sized house, but there's a couple of things that just don't work. Like, for example, you've got to walk through a bedroom to get to the master bedroom. So we needed to change that. And we also needed to take down a couple of the walls on the ground floor so it felt more open plan, because the room layouts just weren't working. Now, one thing that my brother and me have always done is we name each of the rooms so it's easy to talk about. So this room you're looking at right now is called the bakehouse, and we named it that because it had the largest fireplace and because one of the rooms used to be a butcher's room. We thought this could be the bakery, and the rest actually we didn't name. They were just bedroom 1, 2, 3, 4. Master bedroom had an ensuite, a family bathroom, a downstairs toilet, an open plan living room, and then an open plan kitchen. And then the bakehouse was just the entrance hallway area. And remember, if you want to add additions like extensions to your house, well, you've got to pay for that. So the best thing you can do is just refurb what is there, and that's how you can save a lot of money. And I've always been a big believer, if it doesn't make money, then it doesn't make sense. And with this house, everybody wanted to knock it down, and the numbers just weren't adding up. To knock this down and build a similar structure, you're looking at £500,000–600,000 on top of the purchase price of the site. So yeah, there is a margin there for people because nearby sold prices were mad, but it didn't make sense. And especially that there was nothing really that wrong with the house itself. I mean, there's quite a lot wrong with it, but it was structurally sound. And it's almost as if every single developer was overlooking what was there. And therefore, from that information, we worked out what they would have been offering. So we offered 10 grand more than that amount. And when we found out that our offer was accepted, I asked the estate agent how close the other offers were, to which he said that we only just managed to get it by a couple grand, which is the flukiest thing ever because our final offer was everything that we had. And I think some people think there's just people who like DIY and that's the reason they're doing it. And from personal experience, I've never really met anyone who's doing it for the fun of it. It's more out of necessity. It's people who have spent everything that they have in their bank account to get onto the property ladder. And then you're walking around your house and you're getting quotes for X, Y, and Z, and you realize that you can barely even afford the tap that's needed for the bathroom, let alone everything else that needs to go into it. So I do just want to stress this. I have never bought a project without knowing exactly what in a worst case scenario the house would be worth when it's done and the worst case scenario of what the renovation could cost. You have to do all your due diligence before you invest a huge amount of money. Now on this project, pretty much everything was done by my brother and me. We did get in a plasterer, we did get in an electrician, but the rest was all us, and there is a mountain of work just clearing this site, making it all level. The groundwork in the landscaping was immense. I spent hours and hours just chipping plaster off the walls. When it comes to talking about the level of work that is involved in a renovation project, it is overwhelming at times, super stressful. My brother and me on this project alone probably had just over 1,000 arguments over the stupidest things always, but you're just so financially stressed and you're constantly knackered physically and mentally. And sometimes there's this really horrible feeling when you realize how much work you still have to do, and then you feel the pressure because if you stop, the progress stops. No one else is going to turn up to the site and do the work because you ain't paying it. Because if you don't know, pretty much on average it's like 200 quid per day per labourer. And on a project like this with my brother and me, well, that's 400 quid a day saving if we do the work ourselves. But it's not that. It's a lot more money because, look, this is probably going to come across quite arrogant, but I don't really know what other way to explain this. If you are working on your own house and you're the one paying the interest payments each month, you're not taking an hour plus lunch break. What I'm meaning is instead of walking with a wheelbarrow, you're running, because the longer it takes you, the more you're paying in interest. And especially when you've spent $500,000 and then you've spent tens of thousands to get it to the point it's looking like right now, and you're like, oh, brilliant, I've just devalued the dump of a house that I had already just been pretty worried about. And now I'm getting even more worried, and the stress keeps going up. And at this point, the quotes for the windows were a lot more than we had expected. And this is what I was saying, you always do worst case scenarios. So it worked out okay, but it was £3,000 more than I expected. The windows in total for this entire house was £10,200. And yes, you could have got cheaper windows, but for a house of this level and quality that it's going to be, you can't really cheap out and put rubbishy windows in. Now, if you're wondering, well, we've taken the walls down, put a glulam beam in, sorted the underfloor heating. We've put this thing called Newton Lave on the walls, which is a membrane that stops the moisture from outside coming through the bricks and then into the house. And just think of it like a raincoat for your house, but instead of it being on the outside, it's on the inside. We then got a concrete slab poured, and back in the day, my brother and me would mix the concrete ourselves, but we're not doing that anymore. It takes a ridiculous amount of time and effort. So we got it poured. That cost just over £1,000. And then the next task was battening all the walls, insulating. And we also didn't put any windows in for a while to just air the house out, because remember, the bricks had so much moisture in them that you just needed to let it dry over the summer. We also hired an excavator around this time because we realised that when it rained, the water would run down the slope and kind of go pretty much straight into the house. It was really bad, so we needed to lower all the land around the house. That cost about £600 to hire that excavator, and we managed to use all the soil for the landscaping. But that brings me on to the next topic, which is skips. Getting rid of rubbish. Almost every single one of the outbuildings had asbestos roofs, and that you have to pay to get removed. And I've looked for how much I paid for this, but I can't find it anywhere. I think it was between either £1,000 or £2,000, but it wasn't more than £2,000, but I just can't find the number anywhere. I think I probably paid in cash, to be honest. But anyway, I do just want to say this video is a little bit of a different style, and there's a reason for it. Well, this project was going to be the first video on my YouTube channel, and I borrowed a friend's drone and I started really strong. And what you're about to see in a minute is the one time lapse that I ever filmed of myself, because when I watched it back, I saw the quality of it and was like, oh, this looks awful. And then this little voice of doubt's going on. No one's ever gonna watch your channel. Just give up on it. And that is exactly what I did. And it took me, it was either 3 or 4 years after that time lapse where I finally went, nah, enough's enough. I'm doing it. And the reason I'm telling you this is maybe there is something that you've always had in your mind that you've wanted to do, but you gave up on it before you even started. And I'm not being preachy at all. I've lived this and I've given up in the past on a load of things. It's completely normal to do that. However, what's not normal is trying again and keeping on going when you see no progress. Because I still remember when I started my YouTube channel in 2020 and I got laughed at for it by some people that I used to know and some of my work colleagues. And the thing is about following your dream is at the start, they are all right. It is hilarious that you would think that you could try something out of the ordinary and that you're delusional and that you definitely need to be more realistic. However, given enough time and enough effort, the tables, they do start to turn, and those same people who took the mick out of it, they start asking you how you managed to do it. Now, looking back at this footage, it is crazy how we managed to transform this place. And I'm really glad we saved a really old cottage because, like I said, everyone wanted to pull this place down and you just didn't need to. All it needed was a ton of time, a huge amount of effort, and then what every person on YouTube or on TV misses, cash. A lot of it, but the final result, you get something like this. The ingle nook on the right was one of the best finds in the house. For some reason, they had blocked it all up, and when we took all the bricks and the plaster off, we found that beam. So we reinstated what was there 100 years ago. Now the kitchen that I'm about to walk into, that cost 9 grand. The tiles on the floor and in the entrance hallway and the downstairs toilet, that was 2,800 quid. The windows in this place were 10,200 pounds. The electrician was 8 grand. The plastering is a crazy number, 11 grand, but you just can't avoid it, unfortunately. But it does look amazing. The best thing we spent money on was 550 quid getting all of the beams sandblasted. And what that does, it just removes all the layers of dirt and it reveals what it truly looks like. Now in this house, there's a lot of doors and each door costs 200 quid. So just add them up. It's a horrible number. Upstairs and in the living room, it's all oak flooring. That was 5 grand. The 2 wood burners that you've seen, that was 1,100 quid. And the plumbing cost, I want you to remember, we did it all ourselves, so there's no labor cost, but there is a huge material bill because there are so many radiators. Then there's underfloor heating. There's 3 toilets, there's 3 sinks. Well, it's actually 4, including the one in the kitchen, but that all came to just over 7 grand. But we did manage to save a lot of money on the furniture. Now you might be looking, Chris, where did you manage to get all of this old furniture from? Well, all of this furniture was piled in the master bedroom when we bought the house, and we paid someone 1,100 quid to sandblast everything. I mean, the side tables next to the beds, they're obviously new, but the stuff that looks old, that was all in a pile in the master bedroom, and all it needed was sandblasting for it to look nice. The bathroom is very simple. There's no posh marble or anything, and to be honest with you, I quite like just simple bathrooms. I think sometimes you can go a bit over the top and want to tile all the walls, but you don't really need to. And in fact, some really posh houses, they just have certain areas tiled and then the rest will be plasterboard with some paneling. Walking around looking at it like this, it's just weird, isn't it? It's crazy how much you can transform something, and it's crazy how that thing can transform your life so much. Because remember earlier I said that if it doesn't make money, it doesn't make sense. And this house was part of the puzzle of getting me to escape the 9 to 5. And yes, we created a beautiful home, but there is a huge financial aspect because buying a dump of a house in the right place at the right time is one of your only chances in life to increase your equity massively. And before I say the final numbers, no, there was not a crazy market growth this year. It was barely anything. What you are seeing is pure sweat equity. It's having some vision, seeing something that no one else is seeing in a project. Everyone was looking down the route of knocking it down, whereas we were looking at the route of reinstating it, and therefore we could overpay slightly for the plot and make that money back by putting a huge amount of our own effort in. And before I say the final numbers, I do just want to say, if this is a world that you want to get into, I don't have a course for you to buy that's £19,000 and I basically teach you to just buy low, sell high. It's not anything like that. It's just a weekly newsletter That's all I have, where I've explained how I find houses like this. And in fact, I even share houses like this on there. And someone actually bought the fire damaged house off of the back of one of my newsletters. So if that's something that interests you, just search Have Some Vision on Substack. There's also a link in the description. And I'm really proud of my YouTube channel, but I am infinitely way more proud of my Substack. And if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and if it's not too much to ask, if you could share this video with one friend, it would instantly double its exposure, which would really help my channel grow. Now on that note, how much did this renovation cost? Because there's a lot more cost than what I've said. There's insulation, there's skirting board, there's door linings, there's gravel, the list goes on, but it came to a total of just over £120,000, which yeah, is a lot. And considering the fact that we paid just over £500,000, the number's getting mad, but what you've got to remember is it's all levered money, it's bank loans. So there's actually not that much real money being invested. And after 14 months of working on this place, we got it valued at 1.175 million, which is absolutely insane. And as I said earlier, if you're interested in getting into this world of property, just click the link in the description or search Have Some Vision on Substack and have a read. There's now over 60 newsletters and I post them every single Sunday. And remember, you can go far in life on your own, but you can go further together, and you can get multiple people on a mortgage. On the London project, that was my brother, his girlfriend, and me. I know people who have had 4 friends on a mortgage. And the last thing I want to say is no matter what's going on in your life right now, just keep pushing through it because it always gets better. And if you give up now, well, you might as well have never even started. So just keep going, have some vision, have some work ethic, and I will see you next week.